Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Pursuit. I'm your host, Ben Spangle, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a solo episode where we're talking about a word that holds a lot of people back, fear. So I'm excited to dive into that. At The Pursuit, you know, we're all about helping you in your best body, mind, spirit, and life. And today, we're talking a lot about your mind because fear is a thing that's made up in the mind. So I'm excited to talk to you about it. Before we do, I want to share, I love seeing the comments on YouTube, on Apple. If you haven't left a comment or review, please do. It's what helps get the episodes out to more people. But I want to share this one. This just came in the other day from Jodel7654. Thank you. It says, fantastic content. I really connected a lot with what's shared. The episode with Amy Sanders really resonated with me as a woman. The cave you fear holds the treasure you seek. That was powerful. Well, thank you very much. And I know that was a great episode with Amy. If you haven't listened to that one, you can go back and check that out. So today we're talking about that big 4-letter F word, fear. And I want to talk to you about the 5 R fears today, what they are, how they might be playing into your life, and what do you do about them? So I'm excited about it. And these are fears that all of us have at different times, some to bigger degrees than others, but we all have them. And if you think about your life and everything that you're building, everything you're working towards, the man you want to be, the woman you want to be, the wife you want to be, the husband, the mother, the father, the business leader, the leader of the, leader to the world, impacting lives, all the things that you want, my guess is more than anything else, the thing that's been holding you back is fear. Sometimes fear masks itself as laziness, lack of discipline, resistance, not being willing to do the things, but a lot of it ultimately boils down to fear. Fear of one of these 5 usually. So let's jump right in. What's the first 5R fear? The first of the 5R fears is rejection. So many people are so afraid of what other people are going to think on whether they approve of them or not, they approve of their idea or not. And as I go through these 5R fears, they're not in any specific order, but I wanted to start with this one because I think it's one that does hold people back more than most, is the need for approval is very prevalent in our society. And it happens, social media has been a blessing in a lot of ways, in some ways a curse. And I think one of the ways that it's a curse is that, you can always be seeking external validation, wanting other people to like your stuff, wanting them to, I don't know, whether they approve of it or not, or do they follow you, they not follow you. And it feeds our ego a lot, right? In a good way sometimes and in a bad way other times. But that fear of rejection, of being approved of or not, are they going to like it? Are they going to like me? Will I fit in? Is it going to be something that they're willing to endorse? And we don't know. And so often it stops us from taking the next step. We won't make the phone call. We won't put the content out there. We won't ask the person out. We won't ask for the business deal because we're scared. And sometimes we say it's not that. It's just, I'm not sure, whatever. But it is. It's being fearful. And if that fear of rejection is stopping you, if it's totally paralyzing you from taking action on the next steps towards your vision and towards your dream, then it's something you need to get some help with. Because at this, if you're, I don't know, probably in your 30s or 40s, 50s, if rejection's still getting in the way too much that you're not able to act in spite of it, then we got to take a look at how do you get over that? What could you do? And that might be, something where you get a great coach that could help you with it. You got a great mentor, could be in some counseling, some therapy. Anything that's going to help you with it to break through that fear. The best way is just start doing it. Start risking some rejection every day. Start doing something. Ask for the upgrade, for first class, the next flight you're on. It might probably a no, but it doesn't hurt to ask. I'm a big fan of asking. My wife will always tell people when I'm with them, I'll ask for stuff and I always ask for what I want. That doesn't mean I always get it in that situation, but I'm willing to ask, right? Rejection, whatever, it is what it is. I struggled with it a little bit in the early parts of my business career. There's no doubt that I was scared, but I realized that it was okay to be scared and still act. Just because you were scared, just because you're fearful, doesn't mean you can't take that step. And always keep in mind, if you really struggle with this fear of rejection, keep in mind, when you're thinking about whether that person approves of you or not, they like you or not, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. It's your life. It's your life. So we'll come back to some solutions for some of these fears after. But I wanted to start with that. Number two fear, excuse me. The number two fear is ruin. The 5R fears. So if the first one's rejection, the number two is ruin. Many people are afraid of losing it all, everything they built up to this point. What if I take that next step, but then I lose all my finances, or we lose our home, or we lose our health, or I lose my family? They're afraid of ruin. And it's this made up story, right? These worst case scenario outcomes that we often get into, playing them in our mind about how things are going to fall apart underneath you. And I know, I've had battled those thoughts too. I know what they're like for sure. And at times they still come up. I just don't stay with them. I shared a video on social media today, actually, and it was just this idea that you don't have to believe every thought you think. And so if you have a fearful thought about ruin, about how I might lose all, I don't know if I want to do it because what if it doesn't work out? What if this? What if that? You don't have to believe those thoughts. They're just thoughts. And most of the time, the things you're sitting there worrying and fearing don't even come true. But you spend all this time, all this mental energy on them, wasting time that could be used to help you get what you want out of life. So the second fear is the fear of ruin. The third fear, the 5R of fears, is risk. And risk is one of those things that it's all relative, right? The truth is life inherently is risky. If you're driving on the road, there's risk in that. You're out for a walk, there's risk in that. The reality is life is risky. There's always risk, but your threshold for risk, your ability to handle risk, is going to help you maintain a lot more emotional control. If you have a very limited threshold for risk, you're going to have a hard time regulating your emotions because life is risky in all sorts of situations. I've been in the financial business for 15 years, and what I've learned is that the majority of people are quite risk adverse because of how they grew up and growing up middle class or lower middle class. And they're always worried about losing their money. Jim Rohn said it best years ago, at least when it comes to investing. And he said, is investing risky? I guess so, yeah. But try not investing. That's much riskier. And I think it's so well said. So there's always going to be risk, right? There's risk that you could go and do that thing that you want to do, to quit your job, to go and really jump into that business, or to start that business part-time you've been meaning to, or to put the video out there, or to record the music, or to do whatever it is that you love to do and that you really want to, that's in your heart of hearts. There's risk in putting it out there. And it comes back to sometimes the risk of rejection, right? That they may not like it. Not everybody will approve it. Yeah, true. Not everybody is going to approve of it. Not everybody is going to like it. So there's risk in that. There's risk in investing. Yes. But there's also risk in doing nothing. There's also risk in not taking the steps to become who you want to become. And the risk is that you never live the life that you really want to live. So is it risky to go and do the things? Maybe. Probably a lot less risky than you're making it up to be in your head. But to me, it's much more risk to never be who you wanted to be, to never become who you wanted to become, to never try, to never aim, to never go for it. And I think most people live their lives out of these fears, and they allow these fears to determine them. And instead of acting on their dreams, instead of acting on their truth, instead of saying the things they really want to say, being the person they really want to be, doing the things they really want to do, which anybody can do. Anyone can live their life the way they want to. You got to understand that these fears come up, and you don't have to believe them. You don't have to allow them to paralyze you from action. The fourth R in the 5R fears is the fear of regret. And that's this idea that, well, what if I do it and it doesn't work out? What if I buy the thing? And again, I found myself doing this the other day. Going to invest some money in something, into a program. Yeah, man, what if it, it's too much money, it doesn't work out. I don't know if I should do it. And I'm, juggling, I'm caught up in my thinking. Regret. What if I join that business and it doesn't work out? What if I, get in the relationship? What if we move in together, but then it doesn't work out? And there's this fear of regret, this fear of things not working out. And that one, maybe that one really plagues you. I think that the other ones we've listed so far are probably stronger for most people, but the fear of regret is a real thing. And again, you can use that to allow you to stay stuck, right? What if I hire the personal trainer, but it ended up being too expensive, and on and on and on, and I'm going to feel bad about it, or whatever it may be. And you get stuck, and then you don't take action. But there's all these things that you're not taking action on, that if you were taking action on, you would be filled with the opposite of regret, but joy, because you're moving forward. You're moving towards who you want to be. Most people, there's been studies of this when they were doing interviews on people and the end of their lives. And when they talked about what they regret, for most people, it wasn't what they did that they regretted as much as what they did not do, the things they didn't do out of fears of all the things we've talked about. The fifth R of the 5 fears is responsibility. And this fear is all about, I don't know if I can handle it. I'm not sure if I'm good enough. I don't know if I'm capable enough to do that, right? What if it goes well and then what if I can't manage it all and then people are expecting things of me? And what if I leave my job and I start my business and then, I got to make sure that's always happening. And people build this imaginary fear in their mind of not being capable to do so. And again, it often stops people from even taking the next step. I'm going to give you some advice. You don't need to have everything figured out in your life to take the next step. You don't need to be able to see the entire staircase. You just got to take the next step. And when it comes to being able, are you able to handle it, right? Which is really this fear boils down to, I'm not sure if I could handle it. That's the root fear. Susan Jeffers, in her great book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, she talks about that the root fear for all fears is I couldn't handle it. Something would happen that I couldn't handle. And maybe today, when you're thinking about that next level of life for you, maybe the current you couldn't handle all of that yet. Well, I guarantee you it couldn't. Otherwise, you'd already have it. But you're not going to jump from here to all the way up here to the biggest vision of your life in an instant, because you need to grow into who you need to become. You've got to develop new skill sets. You've got to develop a better mindset. You've got to become more effective and focused and productive in order for you to go from here to the ultimate vision of life. It's not going to happen by accident, and it won't happen by chance. It'll happen by law. And part of the law is that as you get better, your life gets better. So this fear of not being able, I don't know if I can handle it. I don't know if I could do it. It's very made up. Another one of these fears that's totally made up. And just keep in mind, you today may not be able to handle all of that, but you don't need to yet. You just got to be able to handle the next step, be able to handle the next thing. And here's the truth. The truth is, life doesn't give you more than you can handle, because even if you make mistakes, which you will, shouldn't say even if, when you make mistakes, because you definitely will, that's not failure. Those are lessons. And if you can learn that a mistake is not a failure, failures aren't failures, they're just lessons. And if I take the lesson, I learn it, I apply it, I'm getting better, I'm improving, that's progress. That's growth. That's wisdom. Life teaches you lessons so that you can become more of who you are. And as you become more of the real you, your life gets bigger. As you get bigger, your life gets bigger. I think back in my life, and some of the things that I considered problems 5 years ago, 7 years ago, is laughable now. And probably for you too. Some of the things you were worried about 5, 10 years ago, the current you can handle them so much better. For me, the same thing. And also, if I think about some of the challenges I deal with today, the stuff I got on my plate, all the things on the go, the 5-year ago version, even 3-year ago version, me, couldn't have handled all of it. I wasn't ready to back then. I hadn't developed the skills. I hadn't developed the competence. I hadn't developed all the mindset that I needed. I hadn't developed the capacity to handle all of that. And I needed to grow into who I am today, which has given me what I have today. And I also know the big vision that I have for my life now, where I'm going next, the current me couldn't handle all that right now. That's why I'm getting better all the time. That's why I'm focused on this stuff. That's why I'm always, learning and growing and reading and getting to courses and getting to seminars and hiring coaches and all those things, because I want people that can help me grow. I want people that have been further than where I am, that have seen further, that have experienced more, that I can learn from them, learn the mistakes, learn the lessons, shorten my time frames. I know I'm still going to have to make my own mistakes along the way, but I know I'm growing. And as long as I'm growing, I'm moving higher and higher, and life is going to get bigger and bigger. And that's the same for you too. The current you couldn't handle everything that you want in your vision. That's why you don't have it. If you did, you'd already have it. But the current you can handle what you got now and taking the next step to grow. So what can you do with all these 5 fears? What are some strategies you can do to overcome them? Let's start with number 1, rejection. Number 1 is just realize that a lot of these people, you're worried about what people think about you. A lot of people, especially in business and sales, when you get into business or sales and you start, you're making calls to book appointments, and many people, we're scared of this in the beginning. And you might be in that. You might be some kind of business where you got to talk to prospects, and that can be scary for you. You're worried about rejection, of them not liking it, them not approving, all the things we talked about. Here's one thing to understand is that in 5 or 10 years, many of these people won't even be in your life anymore. So why would you worry about someone that may not even be in your life 5 or 10 years down the road? Why would you worry about what they think about you right now? Here's the other truth. Most of these people that you're worried about, when it comes time to your funeral, are not going to be at your funeral. And then here's the third thing. Let's say they were going to be in your life 5 or 10 years from now. Let's say they are going to be someone that's at your funeral. But you're so worried about what they think. Maybe that's your parents, a mentor of yours, a family member, a close friend, whatever. When you're that worried about it, that you're not willing to act on what you want, you're placing their opinion above your dreams for yourself. You're placing the possible opinion that someone else may have of you of higher importance than living the life that you really want to live. I'm going to talk about this theme for the rest of this episode many times. But when you start to think about your own mortality, the fact that you're going to die, you're going to leave this body, and you're not going to get another chance in this lifetime or this body. You're a spiritual being, so you're eternal. But the personality of you that you're living in right now, you don't get another chance at this one. So, if that's true, and it is, in my opinion, why wouldn't you go after exactly what you want? Why wouldn't you live the life that you want? You're going to die one day. You're not going to be here. You're not going to get another chance at it. Why not go and live it? And that's helped me with pretty much all these fears, certainly the fear of rejection. Are my goals and dreams, is my vision more important than what you may think of me? Yes. Do I want you to like me? Absolutely. Am I okay with the fact if you don't? Yep. And one more idea on the idea of rejection is when you're worried about what these other people, whoever they are, may think of you, which everybody does. They're worried about what other people think. We're approval addicts that way, right? But when you're worried about that, keep in mind this. The funny thing with it is you're worrying about what they're going to think about you. And at the very same time, when anything they do, they're worrying about what you're thinking about them. So you are worrying about what they're going to think of you, and then they're worried about what you're going to think of them. And it's this crazy, silly, crazy thing that we do as human beings. And we're caught up in worrying about what somebody else is so ego-based, what somebody else may or may not think about us. Stop it. Who cares what they're going to think? It's your life. Care what you think. Care what you think about yourself. Care about the truth about you. Care what you think about your real life and vision that you want to create. How do you overcome the fear of ruin, about it all falling apart? Here's the best way. Here's what I've noticed. It's never happened. Life has always worked out. That doesn't mean you haven't had setbacks or challenges and sometimes big valleys that you've been in life and downturns. Yes, that happens. But you've always made it through. You're still here. You're listening to these words right now. So life has always carried you on. You've always been able to get through it. And if you've always been able to get through it up to this point in time, you're always going to be able to get through it in the future too. Life is always propelling you forward, right? I believe that the power within us, right? The divine within, that spiritual essence, and you might call it, in science, they call it the quantum field, but the energy that all of life exists is to help life continuing moving forward. It's for progress. It's for advancement. If you study all of evolution and humankind and the world, it's been for progress, for advancement. Well, it's the same as your life. So even if something did happen that maybe you had a setback, a major one, a minor one, maybe a really big one, you're going to learn from it. You're going to grow. And it's the lesson you needed so that you can go to the new levels to become who you need to become. How do you overcome the fear of risk? Well, I think that you don't need to be silly with risk. Obviously, everything has some risk. Some risks probably aren't worth taking, right? They're probably not. I think of those squirrel suits, the flying squirrel suits, right? Not the parachutes, but you've probably seen them on YouTube with those squirrel suits. They jump off mountains and they glide through the air and they're close to the mountain face. It looks really fun. I think it'd be amazing. But for me, that's not a risk I'm willing to take. I understand probably if I talk to those guys, they can tell me all the reasons why it's safe. To me, the risk reward's not great enough. That if something happened to me and I wasn't there for my wife anymore, I wasn't there for my kids anymore, I didn't get to live this life anymore, because to me, that's not worth it. Now, some people are adrenaline junkies, adventure junkies. That's what they want. That's what they crave. And to them, the risk reward's high enough. They're okay with that. I'm not. Some things like that, I'm not. But if it's investing into, the stock market, is the stock market risky? Yeah, it's volatile for sure. But you got to get in the game if you want to make any real money with it. Is investing in yourself, into personal development, is that risky? I guess. But ultimately, for you to become who you need to become, you got to grow. And the fastest path to growth is figure out other people that have done what you have, learn from them, pay them for their experience, their expertise, and then launch from there. Get what you need from it. It's way riskier not investing in yourself. It's way riskier not investing. It's way riskier. If you don't invest in your health, well, then you got to be prepared to invest in sickness. Because if you're not taking care of your health, then sickness is coming. So to overcome risk, remind yourself, everything's a risk. Which one's riskier? Which one I want more? What about regret? Well, I think we're going to use regret in a different sense. Rather than regret of, oh man, what if it didn't work out? And then, what if it could have worked out and I never did it? We're just flipping it on its side. Flop the regret. Or worse, I think this fear of regret, this is a healthy fear of regret to not stay in, but to leverage if you need to. What if I got to the end of my life and I never did what I wanted to do? What if I'm laying in my bed. I'm 70, 80, 90, 100 years old, whatever it is. I'm looking back at my life and now I'm filled with regret because I never went after the things that I wanted. I never lived my truth. I never spoke what I really wanted to speak. I never did the things to me, that's a regret that I'm not willing to live with. It's something I'm not willing, no way. So that fear of regret is bigger. Now, I don't sit here living in fear from it, but it helps me. It challenges me. It causes me to keep pushing, to keep growing, to keep improving, because I want to, when I'm there, when I'm 90, when I'm 100, maybe 110, who knows? But when I'm at the end of my life here, I want to be able to look back and think, man, I lived a good life. I made a difference. I didn't care what other people thought of me and let that hold me back. I didn't allow my fears of what if it fell apart to hold me back. I didn't allow my concerns over risk to hold me back. I didn't allow the what ifs if it didn't work out and possibly feeling regretful to hold me back. And then lastly, we've already talked about it, but how do you overcome this fear of the 5th R of responsibility, of not being capable, not being able to handle it? You have to understand, right? As Susan Jeffers, like I mentioned, she talks in her book that the underlying fear of all fears is that I wouldn't be able to handle it. And this is a great way to help yourself with this one. It's the power of a question. I love questions. I love journaling, as you're well aware if you've been listening to the show for a while, because they help you think. And ultimately, your ability to think is your greatest gift that you have. Most people don't use it, but you can. And it's hard work. Here's an example of thinking. When you're becoming fearful about any of these fears, but you can use it with not being able to handle it. If you're worried about, starting your business, if you're worried about leaving your job, if you're worried about, I don't know, having your first kid, right? Getting into the relationship, buying into a company. I don't know. Here's a great question. What's the worst case scenario? And if it happened, could I handle it? And almost always the answer is yes, you could handle it. You are able. You're more capable than you give yourself credit for. Life doesn't give you what you can't handle. I really believe that life only gives you what you can handle. So if it's in your life right now, then you got it. You got the power within you to handle it. So in closing, with these 5 R's, I really want to encourage you, these 5 R fears. I want to encourage you to not let fear determine who you're going to be, to not let fear determine what kind of vision you're going to live in your life, to not let fear determine what you get to experience, but instead to be greater than your fears. Doesn't mean it's easy all the time. No. Doesn't mean you're not going to have challenging days where you kind of fall into a spiral and get really stuck. No, it doesn't mean that. Those are going to happen too. I'm just saying, keep moving forward. I'm just saying, don't give up on the vision you have for you and your future. You're worth it. I know you can do this. Keep taking the steps. Keep moving forward. It's a wonderful, rich life waiting for you. I love having you a part of this community. It's grateful to have you a part of it. I love the kind of people that we attract here. The fact that you're listening, even if you're new, I know you're that kind of person that wants greater things out of life. You're in the pursuit of the greatest version and vision of you. And I respect that about you. I appreciate that about you. Don't let fear hold you back from being all you can become. Get the tools, get the resources, find the people that can help. Keep moving forward in your life. Thank you for being here today. Do me a favor, tag me on social media, share this episode. If you're new, click subscribe. And everybody, go get the life you want. Stop allowing worries and concerns to stop you from being who you want to be.